This is Mount Mitsubishi. It's time for another mountain chat.
Most people who come to teach English in Japan come not because they love teaching, they want to spread English to the world, but rather because they love Japan and they want an experience living in Japan. And teaching English in Japan is one of the more obvious, easy ways to get a visa and come and be able to live here for as long as you like, pretty much. That said, before you come here with that in mind, I think there's a few important things that you should really consider.
Hi, my name is Quinlan. I've lived in Japan for more than 20 years now. I've been self-employed for 95% of the time, about 20 of those years, just the first year. I worked in two different conversational schools part-time when I first arrived, but other than that, I've been doing things on my own way. But I do have some experience teaching English one or 2 days a week at universities for a few years. And more than that, I have a lot of friends. I've known more than 100 people, probably hundreds of people over the couple decades that I've been here that have taught English in every different way, shape, or form. And so I've heard a lot of stories and I've known a lot of people and I have access to the experience of all these people. And so what I'm saying here is, if not my own experience necessarily, then direct experience from other people. So I think it can be useful, maybe hopefully valuable to you.
There's a lot of reasons to want to live in Japan, and there's a lot of illusions people might have or unrealistic expectations they may have for what life in Japan is going to be like, or even what Japan itself is actually like, but that's a topic for another video. Today I just want to get into the teaching English in Japan aspect of it, and if it's a good or a bad idea, if it's a trap, so to speak, as some people online have posted. I would say that there's three main reasons why it may not be a great idea to teach English in Japan, or why it may not be good for you. First, let's get into how much you get paid to do it. These days, with most entry-level jobs, if you've recently graduated or you're just arriving in Japan and you don't have amazing connections, a master's degree, and you're just going to walk into a job, you're probably going to be teaching in a public school as an ALT, an assistant language teacher. And there's a number of companies that'll do that. There's three main ways you can do that. You can do that through a dispatching company, as a direct hire, or through the JET program. And then there's some other ways, but those are the main ways. And if you don't get into the JET program, and you're not going to get a direct hire position either. Those basically go to people who already live here and have connections. And so you're probably going to work through a dispatching company like Interac, a rather large company that employs a number of people I know up here in Iwate. Interac is going to pay about 2.2 to 2.5 million yen a year. So that's going to be less than 30,000 US dollars a year, significantly less, depending on what the exchange rate is at the time. And in a lot of cases, they're not going to cover insurance for you. And so you're going to have to be paying unemployment insurance out of that, taxes, health insurance. And so your take home is going to be fairly low. And then if you're one of these people who's coming to Japan to experience Japan, you're not here to save money. And so you're going to go out to eat, you're going to be doing things with friends, you're going to try and travel. And so you're likely going to be living paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people are. And so after you stay here for a few years, you may have nothing but your experiences to show for it. And as long as you're okay with that, that's great. But I think coming here and expecting to save a lot of money and then start some new career somewhere else isn't necessarily realistic. The JET program lasts for 3 to 5 years, and a lot of people have good experiences with that as long as you are intending to stay for just those years and then leave again. Of course, there are ways in which a lot of JETs transition into translators or other jobs, but I think most people go back, and they sort of want you to go back. One of the main reasons for the JET program is to create people who like Japan and have experience living in Japan, going back to their home countries and being sort of ambassadors for the country. I know that's one of the impetuses for creating it. But if you're an ALT and you decide to stick with it, as some people do, there's a number of people that I've met over the years who are still doing ALT work after 10 or even 15 years in Japan. And that's great if you love what you're doing and you really enjoy it. But the problem is there isn't really much opportunity for advancement, and wages increase only infinitesimally. And so even after doing it for 10 years, you're not going to be making much more than the people who are just starting in most cases. And so if you want to raise a family on an ALT income, you're you could do it. It's possible, but you're going to be sort of low working class. You're just going to be getting by. There's not going to be a lot of spare room, and paying for your kids' college and everything like that's going to be a real consideration. If you don't love teaching English, even if you get one of the more coveted direct hire jobs, maybe you're making $3,000 a month or slightly more than that, it's not going to be the ideal life you want if you don't really enjoy teaching English. So I just think that you should be wary of getting sucked into doing something you don't love for your whole life. If it's going to turn you into a bitter, complaining person, there are people who've been in Japan for 15 to 20 years, and they're sort of unhappy with certain aspects of their lives. And who wants to be complaining about the life they've chosen for themselves, right? Of course, another thing in bigger cities that's more common is working at conversation schools. And working at a conversation school is fine as long as you're doing it in the short term. Generally, the hours are often from, say, lunchtime or just after lunch until 8 or 9 at night. And, that's fine for a couple of years when you're young, but it's not something you want to do for the rest of your life, probably. University teaching work is another type of job that can often be considered rather coveted, and people can aim to, working for a few years in a conversation school or something else, and then maybe getting some sort of TESOL or whatever certification, getting a master's degree so they can start working in universities. But even if you get a university job here in Japan, a lot of times you're going to be doing what's called adjunct teaching, hijokin in Japanese. So you don't have a real contract. You're just teaching a certain number of classes. Maybe you've got a hodgepodge of different local universities that you're going around to, a few classes at each. And that's, there's no stability in that. I mean, maybe you can make a, decent amount of money there. Not great, again. Maybe 4,000 or a little more a month if you're lucky, if you're really hustling. But even in that case, you don't have a solid contract. They could just stop giving you those classes at any given time. And that does happen to some people. Once they get a certain age, they can just be have their contract not renewed. It's not even being fired. They can just say, sorry, we're not going to renew your contract this year. And so that's, something that can really happen and leave you high and dry. You're suddenly 50 years old and you don't have steady income. Say you're not an adjunct teacher, but you've got a full-time position. But in a lot of cases, those aren't tenured. It might be 3 years or 5 years, and then they'll see if they're going to renew your contract. Or in some cases, they'll even tell you from the beginning that we will not renew your contract, that it's just limited time only, 5 years, and then you're done. And so, for obvious reasons, that's less than ideal if you're planning to stay long-term. Of course, some people get the highly coveted sort of seishain, the fully tenured, lifelong positions. And if you do that and you like what you're doing, that's great. Those then have bonuses. They generally have long-term prospects, and your wage generally increases. It's like you're a normal Japanese member of the staff, and that's good. That's fine. Of course, you've got more responsibility then as well, and you're probably going to have to sit through really soul-crushing rather meetings. But it's just a career like any other. Maybe that's what you want. That's what you like. But that's really not easy to do. There's no guarantee you'll ever get one. I know of a few people that have tried for those sort of positions for 10 or 15 years and are still working adjunct work. They were just never able to get one of those positions, and so there's no guarantee that you get one of those. The main thing that might be a trap for living in Japan is if you come over, say right out of university, you make a bunch of new friends here. There's a big drinking culture in Japan. So see, you get in the habit of going out drinking with your friends 2 or 3 nights a week. The job is no stress. Teaching English is easy. You don't love it. You don't hate it. It's just sort of something you do. And the years fly by. I know several people who this has happened to, and they turn around. They've been here for 8 years. They are still making the same basic money. They haven't been improving their lot or developing any other job skills or making any sort of real professional network. They've just been having a good time, sort of these limbo years right after college. But now they're 30. Now they're in their early 30s. And it's going to be much harder after that happens. And when you wake up and think, wait, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. You go back home and now, you probably don't have much savings because you've been out, drinking so much. And going back to school is going to be hard. You have to go into debt for that if you didn't save for it. You've got this huge gap time where you weren't networking or doing all the things to give you a competitive edge in your home country. And it's not easy after doing that for so long to transition into better work in Japan either. So I just think you want to watch out for doing the same thing. That said, I think it really just depends on who you are. We all know who we are. If you're a go-getter, if you're a hustler, if you're someone who is always, if you're ambitious, if you know what you want to do, if you make goals, if you are out exploring, adventuring, doing things, then that's not going to happen to you, obviously. While you're here, you're going to be naturally
finding other things you can do and always making connections, and you won't get stuck in that. On the other hand, if you know yourself and you think you're at risk of just sort of relaxing into a really pleasant, easy existence and letting the days, weeks, months, years slide by, it can be dangerous because you may end up in an untenable position after a decade or two here and nothing to show for it. So that's the main thing that I think people should be cautious of. Of course, maybe that's true in any country, in their home country as well. And so if you're just doing, say, bartending work, maybe teaching English is like the equivalent of being a bartender after college. You make easy money, it's fun, you have a sort of a fun party. Whoa, watch out for that wind. We finished that thought, you have a fun party life, but then, yeah, the years slide by and you're not improving your life. That's what I want to say. Okay, it's getting a little rainy. I want to move down a little bit before I keep talking to you. Coming to teach in Japan is a great idea for most people. And I think if you're planning to just come and spend 1 to 3 years here, it can be a great experience. I just want to warn people about the danger of just doing it for too long if you don't have a plan. Because wages generally don't increase for most of the teaching jobs, and it's not easy to transition from teaching English into another job. Generally speaking, if you're here on a teaching visa, an instructor visa, you're not allowed to do other work. And so some people in the old days would have a side hustle and then gradually transition that side hustle into their main job. But technically speaking, unless you're on a spouse visa, unless you get married, that can be illegal and can get you into some trouble. And so you want to watch out for that. So the main things is the lower than you would expect wages, so it's not as easy to save money here as you would think, especially if you get caught up in the drinking culture. Second, the lack of career advancement options. You really got to be a go-getter and make your own way if you want to get out of the English teaching trap, because there aren't really many easy, obvious ways to get out of it. What was my third thing? Nandakke? Sanbanme. And third would be to be aware that if you spend too long here doing this, you're going to be at a real obvious competitive disadvantage when you do go back to your home country and want to get on with your real career. It can be real hard in the modern job climate, well, in any job climate, really. All this said, I think teaching English in Japan is a great experience, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to talk anyone out of it. I just think you should be aware of what your opportunities are here and what risks there are if you decide to stay here for longer than 2 or 3 years. And if you don't want to teach English in Japan, but you want to live in Japan, there are other ways you can do it. You can come here as a graduate student, as a instructor in a non-English atmosphere. There are jobs for scientists, engineers, things like that here as well. Of course, if you work for a company that can transfer you here, you'll have a totally different experience. There's a lot of other ways to come to Japan from the beginning than as an English teacher. However, most people outside of the large cities that I know of tend to either be affiliated with the university in one way or another, or English related. And so it's something that I wanted to talk about with you. Even if you do come here and teach as an ALT or at a conversation school, that's not necessarily bad at all. Some people love doing that and really enjoy that and are very happy and fulfilled with those sort of jobs. If that's you, fantastic. However, if it's not something that you really enjoy doing, if you find it to be a daily grind, then yeah, don't do it for too long, obviously, just like anything else. I hope that my musings and ramblings on this have been useful or at least somewhat interesting. I'm going to continue doing these kinds of sort of mountain chats about various topics. If you have any questions about this or any other topic, hit me up in the comments or send me a direct message on Instagram or something. I'd be happy to answer questions or to make other videos based on other people's inquiries and questions. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, I'm Quinlan on Instagram and GoNorthJ on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the trails.